How's it going, y'all? Today I have a review of perhaps the most essential piece of running gear that every runner has in the wintertime, and that is your running gloves. So let's get into it. Cheers, beer runners. I mentioned in the beginning that I truly believe gloves are possibly the most important piece of gear a runner has at their disposal in the wintertime. And the reason for that is your hands are usually what get the coldest first. Even when temperatures aren't necessarily that cold, you just tend to lose circulation in some of those outer extremities, specifically your fingers. So keeping those covered is just gonna help you keep you a lot warmer on those cold winter runs. So I wanted to do a quick product review of a pair of gloves that I am currently testing, and those are Turtle gloves, specifically the midweight winter soft edition. You may have seen in previous videos, I actually have an additional pair of Turtle gloves that I was testing last year. These are a much more thin material as opposed to these a lot thicker, a little bit warmer for those colder winter runs. I'll go over some of the differences between these two models, but first, just a quick disclaimer. Both pairs of these gloves I have received as part of my participation in the Bib Brave Ambassador program. So Turtle gloves provided these for me to review. That being said, they in no way influence my opinion of these gloves. All of the opinions expressed in this video are my own. I truly love these gloves, so I just want to go over some of the specific key features that make these such great running gloves in those cold winter months. So real quick, before getting into the differences between the two models, I just wanted to showcase kind of how the running gloves look when they're on your hands, and basically the main feature of the Turtle gloves that make them so unique as opposed to a lot of other running gloves. I've run with gloves in the past. I personally prefer running in mittens where all of your fingers are kept together. It keeps my hands a lot warmer for a lot longer, especially on those ice cold runs. When I have gloves that keep my fingers separated, I've noticed that they just tend to cool down a lot more quickly as opposed to if you have them bundled up in one mitten. Obviously, one drawback to wearing mittens is you no longer have the same dexterity of all of your individual fingers because they're all bundled up in one. But that's the great thing about the Turtle gloves, and what sets them apart is they do have the ability to flip open and release your fingers so you can still have full functionality of your hand if you need to. The thumb comes out as well. Very easy to just turn these into fingerless gloves if you need them. But then as it starts to cool down, you just flip the top back up and you have the mitten again. And that's really the benefit of a mitten like this, is it contains the body heat from your entire hand, keeps all of your fingers warm, your hand warm. Tuck my thumb in to keep that warm as well. I personally find that my hand just stays a lot warmer, and actually sometimes too warm on the runs because it keeps my fingers all bundled together. And I say too warm because these things are incredible at maintaining the heat and holding the heat in. And so I've noticed, especially on longer runs or harder effort runs, once my body temperature warms up, I'm really getting into that workout, sometimes my hands will start to sweat a little bit. It gets kind of muggy, humid inside the mitten. And that's what I really love about the Turtle gloves specifically, is when that happens, it's so easy to just flip open the top. It still keeps your fingers pretty covered and pretty well protected from the elements, especially if you keep it bundled. But what it does is allow airflow through the glove. So if you need to release some of that heat that's held within, very easy to do so just by opening up that vent. And I mentioned there's a ton of ways you can wear this. So as my hands start to warm up, I might open them up a little bit. Or if they're really warm, I'll fold it down just to expose the fingers. This is actually probably my favorite way to wear the gloves, because my thumb, or our thumbs in general, are naturally isolated from the rest of our fingers. That tends to be my coldest digit on runs. So a lot of times I'll keep that in the glove or in the mitten itself and expose my fingers if my hand starts to warm up a little bit too much. But I really appreciate the flexibility or adaptability of this product, so that you can manipulate it throughout the run depending on your temperature or your needs at that time. Apart from that, I mean, the gloves are just incredibly soft themselves. I guess now's a good time to mention one of the key differences between the two models that I have. So I mentioned this is that midweight winter soft edition. And then I also have this kind of weather protect version as well that's much thinner. You can see there, just a lot thinner of a material, almost like a windbreaker material, whereas this is a much thicker kind of fleece lined material, very soft and comfortable on the inside, but both very warm and good at maintaining temperature. I would say really the key difference between the two is this Weather Protect model is designed to basically be completely wind resistant. So that's a huge perk, especially on those windy days. If you're a runner who has been caught out in a windstorm in the winter, you know how cold you can get and how quickly the temperature can drop if that wind is cutting through your clothes. So I found even though these are so thin, they're very, very good at keeping your hands warm on the run because they completely lock out any kind of wind. That being said, I do tend to opt for these once the temperatures drop. I would say probably below 25, 20 degrees is when I'm transitioning from the Weather Protect model to a more heavy duty. These are not as wind resistant. They are still pretty wind resistant. The wind doesn't cut through them quite as easily as some gloves that I've run with in the past, but I definitely notice a difference between the two. The Weather Protect are just made to be 100% wind resistant or windproof, so much better at cutting out that wind totally, but these keep your hands a little bit warmer as long as the wind isn't howling too hard. The other forecast that the Weather Protect gloves are particularly good for is if there's any kind of rain. They aren't totally waterproof, but they are water resistant. The material is just good at the water kind of rolls off of it. It's not absorbent. It doesn't hold in that water like the fleece might. So although these aren't totally waterproof, they do a good job keeping that moisture out for longer on your run. Eventually it's gonna soak through, but it'll keep your hands protected a lot longer. And what I will often do if it's raining, especially now that I have this second pair of gloves, is just go ahead and double them up. So if it's particularly cold, but there's gonna be a lot of precipitation, I'll put these heavier duty gloves on underneath, and then I'll just slip the Weather Protector layer over top, almost as just a wind guard that's gonna help lock out the wind, help protect the inner glove from moisture for a little bit longer. Another thing to note about the material of both sets of gloves is they are moisture wicking, so the nice thing is even if your hands do start to heat up, they start to get a little bit sweaty, the material is gonna wick the moisture away from your hands, so you don't get that kind of nasty clammy feeling like you might with other heavier duty gloves that don't have that moisture wicking property. Just helps keep you a little bit more comfortable on the run. So those are some of the key features of the gloves that I wanted to highlight, but all in all, these are just incredibly comfortable, incredibly warm running gloves, and for the price, I think they're some of the best out there that you can find. They're only $28.99 on Turtle Glove's website. I'll link to that down below. And if you are interested, you can also use the code TURTLEBIBRAVE, all one word, TURTLEBIBRAVE, to get 15% off any order, including sale items. So I would highly recommend checking them out. They are great for winter. In terms of temperature testing, I have been a little bit limited in my testing ability just by the weather that we have. The coldest run I've taken these on, the feels like temperature was about 15 degrees. No problem. I just went with the single layer. These were plenty warm, and I did end up venting them halfway through the run just to help my hands cool down a little bit because these kept my hands so warm on the run. So just something to note. I haven't tested much lower than that, but they have heavier, dutier options on their website as well if you're interested in checking some of those out. But Turtle Gloves, would definitely recommend giving them a try. They are incredibly comfortable, perfect for the winter runs, keep your hands extra warm, easy to adapt to whatever your needs are. 10 out of 10 would highly recommend. So I'd love to hear your comments down below what your favorite piece of winter running gear is. Like I said, I went with the gloves just because I feel like I put them on the earliest in the winter season out of all my winter gear, and they stay with me the longest into the spring just because my hands tend to cool off so much more quickly than the rest of my body. But highly, highly, highly recommend the Turtle Gloves. Thank you as always for tuning into the review. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and let me know. I am always willing to help. And if this is your first time on the channel, I hope you give me a subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up to help other people find the channel as well. And that's everything I had for you. So thank you for tuning in as always. And until next time, happy holidays, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.